Hello, welcome everyone. Welcome to our podcast. This is I guess it's our first official podcast, is it, Sheba?
Yes, absolutely.
So the podcast is really about introducing ourselves and the new blog.
The new blog that is called We Talk Science.
Excellent.
Fabulous.
Great. So we should probably introduce ourselves.
Yes, should we do that?
And I think you, as the founder of this blog, should probably start. Who are you? What do you do? What's your background?
So, my name is Sheba. I worked on the bench for about 15 years, and I was involved with research in genetics and human molecular biology. And about 7 years ago, I thought, well, it was time for me to do something else because I felt like I could contribute to science in a different way. And that's when I started working for the publishing house. I'm a publisher, and I am still very much in contact with science. That excites me. And also the fact that there are people doing all this wonderful research out there. And I just wanted to provide a communications mechanism for these people to talk about what they do.
Great.
So tell us a little bit more about yourself, Annelies.
All right, well, great. So I'm a little bit the opposite because I actually have a communications degree. And I've been working for a publisher for, that's how we met.
Yes.
For quite a while now. But I've actually started studying in my spare time, studying biomedical sciences. So I'm working my way to the bench, I guess you could say. Loving it. And I just dig everything sciencey, I think you could say. So.
Yes, guys, I have seen Annelies's homework, and it reminds me of my school days, so it's absolutely fantastic that she's so enthusiastic about it. It's great.
I have a lab coat now, which is awesome. Anyway, good. So that's a little bit about ourselves, but let's talk about the blog. What's the blog about?
So the blog is everything about science. Being a scientist at the bench and now being a publisher and still being very, very close to the science, I just feel like, there is not much of a way of people to talk about science. I mean, of course, we have all the magazines and all of the blogs there's so many science blogs out there that are doing fantastic work on getting, information out there, to the people who really are interested in knowing more about a certain topic. But the fact is that, what I want to do with We Talk Science is that I want to be a credible source of information, which means that I want people who are actually doing the science themselves to tell everybody else what they're doing with evidence-based and referenced papers or science that has actually been done. And literally, I want them to talk about what they're doing in a way that can be understood by somebody who's not a specialist in that particular topic.
Yeah, so that's probably an important point, right? To make sure to kind of translate it to the public that's maybe not science educated, if you could say that.
Sure. The bread and butter of science is scientific articles. Those, scientists see those every day. All of them read it, and they use that to make further advances in their field, essentially. But some of these things are so technical and they're so mired in detail that it is difficult for people to, get through. I mean, people like me, for example, if I was to read a physics paper, for example, that would be a disaster because I don't understand any physics. But the point is to be able to convey an interesting message without the verbosity and without the details, and to just talk about your story as if you were explaining it to your grandmother.
Right.
What you're doing for work.
That's awesome.
What do you do to earn a living?
Who's your intended audience?
Okay, well, the intended audience is literally anybody who's interested in science. I mean, it could be a person on the street who just read, or at least heard about this particular thing that is going to be very, very dangerous for you if you consume it, and wondering how true is that? Should I be trusting it? Should I get rid of my house of this thing?
Yeah.
Should I make sure that I protect my loved ones from it? How credible is this source of information? Yeah. And I think that there's a lot of people that are trying to be this credible source, and they're doing a great job at it. Like I said, I just want to be another voice in the mix to say, okay, I have scientists write about their science, and if you really want to know what is going on with this particular thing, for example, you can read about it in the blog.
Yeah, because I think a lot of times when new research comes out that discovers there's a minute chance that chocolate can have a good effect on something. It's like, chocolate can save your life. It's all over the newspapers. and it's not a honest representation of the research, because researchers maybe talk about there's this chance or significant or not significant, and what does that actually mean to people is I don't think is always clear.
Sure. I mean, okay, first of all, I'm just going to say I'm not going to believe any study that's going to tell me that chocolate is not good for me. I'm sorry. But you're absolutely right, Annelies. I mean, one of the biggest things in science is the uncertainty of things. So, one day you can make one discovery and the next day that discovery could be something else. Things are not always concrete. Things are not always so clear to scientists, and we know that things can change as more and more evidence is collected, and we have to go back to our original premise and say, okay, we thought that this is how things would start, how things would be, but they're not really. So we have to go back and change our initial assumption. And this is literally, Science 101. This is how experimentation works. And, this is also a very, very interesting principle that I want to create in this blog to say, right, this is what's been discovered. However, there could be evidence that is against this, what we have actually discovered, and when we can move further. Just for an example, I'm very much into fitness, and one of the things that I've gotten really interested in is nutrition, and how does nutrition contribute to, for example, weight, and also, for example, there was this great book that I was reading, is cardio better for you or weight training? So what is better for you, cardio or weight training? I'll put the link of this book on my blog because I'm going to write a blog entry about this. But the very fact is that this book is great because it asks questions about, okay, what should I be doing in the gym? Should I be on the treadmill? Should I be lifting weights? If I want to, if I want to lose weight or if I want to gain muscle, what should I be doing? And there's several questions about it, and every single entry that he's made has a reference. And the thing is, the one message that I came away from reading this book was that I still don't quite know what is better. Because the science is not clear. Because, okay, let's say there was a study that was done with 100 people that said one message, that yes, you have to do cardio in order to lose weight. But then there was another study that was done with 1,000 people, and the results were not so clear. So in science, I think it is a numbers game. If you're looking at the population, you have to have big enough numbers in order to make a conclusion. And this is where the probability, the p-value comes in, which I won't talk about here. But the point is, science is not exact. And this is the message that I also want to send to people, that because science is not exact, it's impossible to say one thing with absolute certainty over another.
Well, but at the same time, you are still providing information to people.
But still, I'm providing the information that is the state of the art. So this is what we know today. This could change, but still, this is what we know today, and here's the evidence to prove it.
Yeah, great. That's a great example, by the way, of the fitness. I know I've looked at that in the past as well. Okay, so these stories, they're going to be scientific stories. Where will they be coming from?
So I have I know a lot of people in science, of course. It's part of my job, and I knew them when I was working in the lab as well. And I know that these people have some really interesting stories. So, for example, there are people that are working on various aspects of microbiology. One of the most important topics in microbiology is that bacteria or pathogens are getting resistant to the antibiotics that we have at the moment. It's called AMR, antimicrobial resistance. And there's a huge number of people that are doing some amazing work on every aspect of this. So how does a bacterium become resistant to the antibiotic? How do we prevent this from happening? Bacteria live in communities, and these communities are more resistant to the antibiotic. How do we prevent this? How do we get over this problem? Are there new antibiotics coming in the pipeline? All of these kind of really, really cool things that are happening in this field. And it has a really, really great and huge and real implications on everyday life. I mean, on our level, it basically comes down to, should we be eating antibiotics? Should we be actually taking a course of antibiotics just because the doctor prescribes, or should we be asking for them?
Right.
So this is the kind of work that I want to kind of capture in the blog. I mean, who is going to be writing for it? Well, it'll be people who are doing it.
Yeah.
People who are doing individual experiments, or having discovered a piece of the puzzle that they want to profile, little details like that, but in a way that is accessible to most people.
Yeah, great, cool. And so they're definitely going to be written stories, but also some other multimedia.
Absolutely. So, I mean, the blog is meant to be read. But I also thought, since we have the capabilities of actually recording stuff, I really enjoy the idea that people would be able to listen to different things like this podcast, for example. At some point, we'll probably put some videos up as well. It's meant to be very multimedia and also very multidisciplinary. So there'll be something for everyone, so to speak. But I mean, I like the idea of having pictures and audio elements and video elements, just to put the messages together, just as long as people understand what I'm trying to get across.
Yeah, great. If people listening to this podcast are interested in contributing to the blog, what can they do? Can they get in touch with you? Can they sign up or?
No, absolutely. So on my About Me page, I have an email address, which you can definitely use to get in touch with me. I would be happy to consider your stories and what your proposal is. So please write me an email if you're interested. And we should definitely, keep in touch so that let's see what we can actually do for each other.
Great. Okay. People, if you want to contribute, go to the website. So we talked about some stories already, like the AMR. Are there any other stories? Maybe some. Are there any stories that you don't have in the pipeline yet, but you're like, we need to get that at some point because I'm so excited about it?
Yeah, sure. So I actually have been in contact with several people about this, as you know, but there are some incredibly interesting stories that I thought would be absolutely fantastic on this blog. So one of the things that I wanted to do is something about martial arts. So I'm very much into Taekwondo. Every martial art has been developed by masters over a course of hundreds and hundreds of years, I suppose, and they have essentially refined the easiest way and the best way to hit somebody in a particular place or to get the most power out of your movement. I do know that there is some science that has been done with the kinesiology, I think the term is, on how the body moves. And how to get the maximum power out of a strike or a kick or whatever. So that's kind of one of the stories that I want to kind of investigate. Let me see.
So if there are any martial artists out there who want to get in touch and help out, writing a story or maybe just providing some information, the email address to get in touch with is on the blog.
Fabulous. I would love to hear from you.
Great.
I know that there are several other things that I want to talk about. There is a woman that is involved with a lot with education. So she is doing education at all levels, basically. So, for literally getting kids interested in science, for example. Because people seem to be a little bit suspicious about science these days, and they don't really know quite what to believe and all of these things. I think starting kids at a young level, when they're younger, to understand that science is, what it is. It's not exact, but it's really cool, and it does give you a lot of information that you otherwise may not have, and how to actually have these kids and obviously everyone to kind of be able to weed out the relevant and the not relevant, the true and the not true, the evidence-based and the non-evidence-based, I guess is the best way to say it. I think that would be a really, really great goal to have. So I mean, coming back, I think that this woman who I know personally would be great for the blog as well.
Okay. What defines success for you? When is this project successful?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. I mean, the thing is, at this moment in time, honestly, all I've done is set a platform up for people to be able to talk about their science. I actually have no illusions about where it would go. I have no idea, I mean, of course, one of the great things that could happen was that some of our posts go viral. That would be awesome. But on the other hand, I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be, viral as in it's read by everybody, but at least it's read by people who care and who matter. I think that it's really, really important because, especially these days on the internet, there's so much information out there. There's so much information and there's so many people talking about their own points of view. And, like faith comes into it. Like, I believe that this is true and I believe that that's not true. So I think that it's important for people to be able to just distinguish between what is concrete and what is scientifically proven and what is evidence-based versus somebody's opinion or somebody's experience or someone else's, take on things, essentially. So I think my success would be if I can educate at least some people to be able to understand that science is not exact, that science can change, and the fact that, if they can go to a website, any website on the internet, and read something, that they would have I wouldn't want to call it a suspicion, but more almost like a healthy inquiry, a critical way of thinking, which is actually another very big cornerstone of science. I mean, scientists are meant to be taught how to critically think about everything. But if we can actually have that idea about, okay, I'm reading this thing and I'm not quite sure where it's from, where are the references in a blog post, right? Should I be believing this? Maybe I should look this up on my own and see what I can find, and perhaps find a credible source where I can say, okay, maybe this is true and maybe this is not true. Because remember, a lot of times when a lot of things that you read, they make a black and white statement. And they say, this is good for you, or that is, you shouldn't be eating that, for example. A lot of times that is based on science which is not exact. That came from a paper that says maybe this particular component of whatever is not good for you, possibly because it could cause, I don't know, a heart attack in people who are above 65 and, are men. Let's say. And that doesn't necessarily mean that everybody who eats that would have got a heart attack. So, you need to really put things into perspective. And if I can actually get to people and have them think that way, I think that would be something that I would, really want to aim for.
Yeah. Well, that sounds like a good goal.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so it'll be, you're obviously the creator of the blog. I'm a fellow podcaster, let's say, at this point, but there are other people involved into making this blog there.
Yeah, there are other people. If you go into the About Me page, you will see who they are. So I have, so there's, of course, me and Annelies. There are other people that are involved with this blog. Priyankara is she used to be a journalist, and she has very happily agreed to copy edit some of our work. Jasper is the technical guy behind everything, so he is the reason why the blog is actually up. I had to do a serious crash course in how to make sure that, how do I actually use WordPress, and without him, the blog as it stands would not exist. So thank you, Jasper. I also have a professor, his name is Omar, and he curates the entries that I get from our contributors for scientific content. So basically he reads through the content, and he curates to make sure that it's basically a sanity check on terms of the science. Great. So far those are our main people that are working with the blog, and maybe at some point there'll be more.
Yeah. Sounds like a great team already.
I think so. Yeah, absolutely.
Good. Is there anything else? What's it like doing this podcast?
Okay, so, I'm hearing my voice in my own head. And I know it's going to be different on the podcast as well. I hope that I'm not talking as fast as I usually do, because I know that I talk really, really fast. So apologies for that. But no, I've done this a couple of times by now. So, I'm kind of used to the microphone in front of me. But no, it's cool. I can't wait to see I can't wait to see the final product, actually.
No, absolutely. And I'm sure, by the time you listen to this podcast, the final product will be up and running. So
I'm sure it'll be awesome.
I'm sure it'll be awesome.
Annelies does all the editing for the podcast now, because I have no idea how to do it. So thank you for that, Annelies.
You're very welcome. And I actually love doing podcasts, so that works out well. With that, I think we're out of time, and we went through all of our questions. But I think our listeners will now have somewhat of a better idea of who the people behind the blog are.
Well, at least you know what we sound like.
Yes, that's true.
But, thank you very much for listening to this, and I hope that I can give you content that you'll be interested in. If I'm not, please do get in touch, because I would really love to hear from you what you want to read, what you want to hear. If you have questions about something, and I can, see if I can find an expert on that to be able to, write an entry. So please get in touch if you feel like, this is something that you might be interested to do or to hear about. Whatever the case might be.
Yeah, great. Okay, and all of the contact details to get in touch you can find on the About page of the blog.
Yes, exactly.
Which you're on, probably, when you're listening to this. So thank you very much for listening. Thank you, Sheba, for being interviewed.
Thank you, Annelies, for interviewing me.
You're very welcome.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.